it's okay to be angry. And growing up, nobody ever told me that. So I'm thinking anger is something that you aren't supposed to experience. Like, oh no, it's a bad thing. No, anger is an emotion. And you know what? It's human, it's natural, and it's okay.
What's up, peoples? It's your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And your boy Omega.
Getting hot under the collar? Come cool off with the cast. Erica and Richard join us for another round as we unlock the mysteries of anger, our relationships with it, and ways to manage that hard emotion. As every episode, we want to thank all of you for listening. We truly appreciate you listening to our hearts and minds on varied and difficult topics.
Special thank you goes out to our Patreon subscribers for their support of the show. Every little bit helps us reach our goals to invite more high-profile guests and create bonus content.
And if you want to join in our conversation outside of this cast, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at HaveADrinkCast, and make sure to use that hashtag HADcast.
Remember, this is always a conversation. If you don't agree, you want to voice your opinions, or even suggest a topic for an episode, feel free to join our Discord as well. The link will be in the description.
And please, if you like what we're doing here, share us with your friends, your family, your neighbors. I mean, just ask this random guy. Yeah, it's a good podcast and all that. Your referrals mean a lot to us, as that's how we gain more listeners. So,
thank you again.
And get prepared to sit,
think,
and have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink Podcast. Enjoy the episode.
We said peace. What's up, peoples, and welcome back to another episode of the Have a Drink Podcast, where we invite you to sit, think, and have a drink. We're your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And your boy Omega.
Hey, and joining us at the bar again is our regulars, the amazing Erica. And the wonderful Richard. Hey, what's up? Thank y'all for joining us.
Herb Dean.
All right, Hadcast. We are actually going to do a little bit of a top off from the last episode because we got responses afterwards, and I wanted to make sure that we had some corrections and the inputs got in there. So we're gonna do a little bit of a top off segment. This one is kind of addressed to our the timelines that we were talking about. So the one thing about the timelines, the fact that the pandemic is so bad is one of the main reasons why we're able to go faster. Normally, they have to wait until a certain number or percentage of the study participants get the disease so that they can compare the two groups, placebo and real vaccine. But that process happens way faster here because of how absurdly out of control COVID is. Polio isn't a good comparison for the timeline because we've learned a lot in the past 80 years, including a lot of research coming out of attempts to do an AIDS vaccine. Building on the SARS and MERS research just makes sense because they're related viruses. So that cutting down the timeline, those things are happening because we're in a pandemic. So the idea of pandemic speed was that, because you're going to need people to get infected, or a percentage, like the response was a percentage of people need to be infected with the disease in order for there to be these certain phases to go on. But because we have so many people, we're already well past that needed percentage. And there's the simple reality that there has been more money and resources given to this project than any other vaccines project in history, where we've all come together. People have donated to countless efforts, countless, where you have so many people who are trying to, donate to hunger, donate to, animals and things like that. And, like now we're in this space of, we're smack dab in the middle of a pandemic, and all those sorts of those charities have been kind of slowed down or put on pause. And I could be wrong about that. So while there may be some concerns about the rush, it's actually, there should be feelings of more confidence about where we're at with it.
That makes a lot of sense.
And as well as something else addressed about the military. taking being forced to take the experimental portion of the vaccine. That has been disproven. um the military is not making the vaccine mandatory until the FDA approves it, because the FDA has so many rigorous hoops that vaccines, that medicine, that supplements, anything has to jump through in order to be approved by the FDA. So that's where it comes back to it being a job, you know, as well as one more little sprinkle top off for you. A lot of the previous presidents have stated that they would get the vaccine in public for people to know that it's safe, as well as the president elect and the vice president elect. Kamala Harris was you know uh interviewed saying, when asked, are you going to take the vaccine, would you be willing to take the vaccine in public in order for people? She's like, if I would, the focus is that we want the healthcare professionals and the frontline workers to receive it first, because they're the most at risk, because they're right at the front lines of everything that's going on. But that's to say, if it would help the American people feel more at ease and feel more comfortable and confident in taking the vaccine, absolutely, I would do it in public. So there are these officials, there are these people in positions of power that are willing to do that, to be able to put the American people at ease, and especially those in our community that might be feeling hesitant because of X, Y, or Z. um uh yeah, I think that was the last thing. But also, I mean, so the other thing is that there's also this. I mean, we haven't gotten to. We're gonna have another top off about this, because we have yet to speak with a scientist about it. I want to speak with a scientist directly about this, so it might be a bonus episode that we have, or we might have it be a part of a part 2 episode to vaccines. Um, but there's this let's wait and see mentality. Now I want to clarify something. When we were talking before about whether or not we would get the vaccine, we said let's wait and see what happens with people. There will be a lot of people that might take that stance, and the issue becomes, my stance is I'm gonna wait and see, but I also have the caveat of, like, I'm also not gonna go anywhere and expose people to myself of not having that protection, especially if a bunch of other people are doing that. It becomes an issue in society when not everyone is taking the necessary precautions in order to eradicate this disease that exists. So with a bunch of people having that wait and see mentality, it puts it more at risk as to the pandemic not being over, as to like us being thrust back into high numbers of infection rates of all these things, because people are going to quote wait and see. Whereas if we but sorry, not just wait and see, but they're going to wait and see and not take the necessary precautions for that. Like, I'm waiting and seeing, which means I'm still technically on lockdown. I'm still on quarantine until I see what happens with everyone else. Um, and that can be dangerous, because people aren't going to do that. You see how hard it is to get them to wear a mask for other people, let alone them being like, I'm going to wait and see and then stay home. Yeah, no. Thanks for enjoying our top off, and look forward to a part 2 on Vaccini.
All right. So tonight we are going to be talking about anger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to put a little bit of emphasis on it. Anger.
We're talking about anger.
Yes.
Are you angry right now?
Just a little bit.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and we're talking about anger, and we have a couple of questions. Question number 1 is, what makes you angry? And question number 2 is, how do you express anger? So these are two very important and poignant things that we wanted to talk about today. And we actually put it out on our social media, as well as we've actually just talked to people about it. And this is a great time to bring this up. Why is this a great time to bring this up, you may ask? Everybody's in their feelings right now. Everybody. Nationally, potentially globally, everybody's in their feelings. Everybody's
Mhm.
feeling some type of way about something. Some people express their anger in one way or the other. So we just wanted to reach out to our loyal listeners, our friends, our families, and find out why. What makes you angry, and how do you express that anger? So,
Wonderful.
open into the panel.
So, what angers me? What angers me now? I think lack of compassion and lack of, I see a lot of people projecting their perception as reality and fact, as opposed to what, instead of acknowledging that someone else's reality could be different. And that's very irritating and angering. That angers me because I feel like we can't get to the level of understanding that we need to achieve as a people until we create space for that. And so it makes me angry that we can't be as unified as we need to be. So I would, if I had to think about something that makes me angry right now, that just has me in a constant state of just like quick piss me off, is reading posts or engaging with people when we're talking about whatever is going on in the world right now, and their lack of just trying to understand the other perspective. I would have to say that in my 20s, um, I was quick to anger. And I think as I've gotten older, the reason why I have, I guess, improved in that area or matured in that area is because of my relationship with God. So when I think about anger, I always think about how, um, I think it's First Corinthians that talks about what love is, and it talks about how love is slow to anger. And I think that loving your brothers and sisters and loving yourself is so important. And if you are focused on the love, then you're slow to anger. So as I have focused on becoming a mother, focused on becoming a woman, focused on just becoming a better version of myself, and focused on loving myself and others, anger is a disservice to myself and to everyone else around me. So that's my motivation for, just trying to keep that in check, because um, if, let's say, I'm having a disagreement with my loved one, well, I love them. And even if they've done something to anger me, it's better for me to pause and understand their perspective and us talk through something to come out on the other end than to lash out in anger and say something I can't take back, or not give them the compassion and consideration that they deserve as someone I say I love. So to me, I think, anger is a trap, especially when it comes to, your loved ones and your friends and your family, and yourself. When you're angry, it takes so much energy away from positive things that you could be doing. And so for me, my focus is to be love, live in love, give people love. And if that is truly my focus, I can't walk around being angry.
It's interesting because I thought about this topic because it was a very hot button issue for my family growing up. It's kind of one of the core things that shaped me, into the person that I am today. Why I am so like, I chose, love and compassion and peace over, being angry, even though, I mean, I do get angry like everybody else. As far as what makes me angry, it's interesting because, like I said, growing up in a household, anger was something that was everywhere, from my grandparents to my siblings to my mom, to my grandpa's brothers and sisters. It was just something that was within the genes, I suppose. um So I chose a life of being peaceful within that area because I didn't feel it was necessary to get angry, especially when I would watch certain things happen. So um, I guess what makes me angry now is someone's unwillingness to try to think about the consequences, you know, especially with everything that's been happening recently. It's, from the mask debates to, the vaccine to stay at home to, everything that's just kind of like to the election. It's just the people have had this unwillingness to listen, unwillingness to change, unwillingness to think about consequences of their actions, and it leads to this whoopsie effect. And so that I find myself getting angry about. I mean, as I over the years I became less and less angry, which is interesting because growing up until I left about actually my last few months of summer before the end of high school, I got a taste of what anger was for me, and I didn't know how to control it. um and so I felt myself get overcome with I felt cold, so I would shiver, and like I would get really cold, and like I just felt like this focus, and then just like this warm flush feeling all over my face, but everything else was cold. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced it. And then uh l- throughout my college years it sort of grew, and I still didn't know like where it was coming from, and because I never chose that and I never felt that before, so it was just this weird overpowering feeling. And it's if you go back a few episodes and you're listening now, we talked about the Aunt Viv episode where Will Smith was referring to his dragon back then, and so I feel like at some point for um young male bodied individuals, going through that change, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but there's that moment where you get that dragon that just shows up all of a sudden, and you have this unchecked level of anger that you didn't know you had to deal with. um
I think that's on both sides, though. I wouldn't say male. I think male and female both have that,
right.
and it's
And
called puberty.
well, no, I'm saying I understand the flush of hormones and everything that comes with puberty, but this was different. This was while I was in college. This was this was after I've gone through, a good amount of puberty, and I still have this feeling of just increased fire behind it. And the reason why I said that was I was speaking for males is because male bodied individual. um so yeah, so I mean the expression of anger was through that. And so from that space to now, it's kind of slowly with my increase in Buddhist teachings and meditations and dance output, exercise, diet, whole mind frame, weed for me, like I learned to have more of a response um versus a reaction in situations. So the way I express it has evolved. I guess that's how I'll have to answer that.
Yes, sir. Evening, everybody. So for me, what angers me is disrespect. Um, Especially when we're all adults here, right? And I think y'all know me well enough, specifically Z and Omega. Cool, whatever. But I ain't got no issue with nobody. Hey, how you doing? You all right? All right, cool. So, but when that line is crossed, especially as an adult, when you know better, that's what bothers me. Because listen, it's rough for everybody out here. You know. Another thing, I think there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Um, I remember Chris Rock saying a long time ago, like, the more you know, the more you don't know, which I think is absolutely true, right? you can be, a world class, person that knows everything, but there's always going to be something that you don't know, right? Ignorant, something you just don't know, and that's okay. Stupidity is like when you don't know, but you're not trying to acquire that knowledge. You know what I'm saying? It's just, yeah, I know I don't know this, but I don't care. And y'all are smart enough to connect the dots. We've seen a lot of that. I want to say, in our lifetime for sure, but specifically probably the last 8 years. It's been really heavy, right? So disrespect, but also stupid people who, are choose to ignore what they want to ignore, right? Choose to not do their part in helping, stop the spread, you know? Um, that's what really, really bothers me. And so now I'm just more mindful of just what avenue or what I choose to give my attention to. If I see, you know, something, another person being shot and killed, I just know it's best that I not watch the video because I know it's going to do nothing but anger me. If I see something, about somebody willingly being disrespectful and just ignorant, it's going to do nothing but anger me. Also, another thing that angers me is just knowing how the country was just set up and how racism and white supremacy is literally embedded in the fabric of the country. And like y'all, three beautiful people like yourselves, we all work hard. Nobody can't deny that. And it still sometimes can be a challenge just to even get a leg up for whatever reason. That really angers me because it's like, what can we do, right? Um, how I've been handling it is just basically the best that I can do. Read more, but also willingly not putting myself in situations that I know it's going to make me angry, right? And that's been the best. But ultimately, I think we're all old enough to know better, and you shouldn't just disrespect anybody. Hey, if you're doing that way, hey man, you bring that on yourself, right? But when you're choosing to be disrespectful and rude, I think that speaks more about you than the other person.
That was awesome. Wow. Well, first of all, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to define anger. It's a noun, a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. I read that and I think about it. And what I realize is I don't know what it's like to be angry. I know that may sound weird, may sound dumb. I've been annoyed, I've been bothered, I've been upset, but I don't think I can honestly say I've been angry too often. I think I've been angry in my own knowledge, in my own recollection. I think I've been angry maybe 3 times in my life, and that's because it's a choice. I feel like I choose not to be angry. I choose not to allow people to control my feelings. And I learned this very early on. And I say early on, like middle school. I would say this to people and never realize how much truth there was to this. Um, I don't allow people to control my feelings because if I allow them to control my feelings, they control me. And that changed when I really started getting into women. And I say that because you can't help how you feel. You can't help how a woman will make you feel. As much as we want to say it or try to be a player, be a whatever, vice versa. When you really love a woman or when you really like a person, unconsciously they will have that ability to control your feelings. And that was when I learned that somebody could do that to me. But to say being angry, I don't really know what it's like to be angry. I've been upset, but I've never truly been angry because, again, like I said, I don't allow people to control me like that. Like my daughter has upset me one time. I've been annoyed and bothered by things, but she's upset me one time when I kind of blew up and yelled at her. But I wasn't angry with her. I just didn't like the situation, and there wasn't much else that I could do about it. So I was just expressing my displeasure. But I wasn't angry because I understood that she's young and she's still learning. So she doesn't know the weight of her decisions at that time. You can't be angry with somebody who doesn't know. And that's the way I treat things. Um, my wife, even, she does this one thing that really, 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 really bothers me. And that is she talks over me. That bothers me. But I'm not angry. It just bothers me. So that's why I really say like I can't talk about being angry because I don't know. Now, when people say how do you when the question is how do you express your anger? I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how do I express my anger because I don't allow people to get me to that point. I don't get angry, I get protective. Now, let me explain that. There's been a couple of times when I've been with my boys, with my friends, and even with my family where I feel in my heart something's not right in this area. I don't get angry, I get protective. I know somebody's about to try to hurt my brother, hurt my friend. They're going to do bodily harm to them. I don't get angry, I get protective. Now, my senses are heightened and I'm more aware of everything around me. I can shut out the things that are unnecessary and hyper focus on the things that are. I'm not angry, I'm just focused. So, to say, how do I express my anger? I couldn't tell you. And this whole time I'm listening to you guys talk about these things. I'm sitting here really trying to rack my brain. Like, have I ever been angry? And I don't think I really have. The reason why I don't feel another reason why I don't feel like I've ever been angry is because, like my cousin said about how Erica said, I lead with love. I think with a compassionate mind and heart. I try to think about things from all other areas, other sides. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I really, really try to be empathetic to either their ignorance or just the situation. So I try not to let it make me angry because if I was angry, I feel like all I'm gonna do is be that stereotype that they put us in. The angry black man or the angry black woman or the angry racial profiling of that. I'm like, no, I'm not, that's not me. You know, I've had a kid piss me off before, but I wasn't angry. It was just a kid who didn't know how to handle a situation. So I flew off my handle, but then I realized, you know what? You're the adult. You're the coach. You need to have better understanding and be able to lead this child better instead of yelling at them or getting out of pocket. And at that moment, I was like, yo, like, do better. I wasn't angry, but I was bothered by his response and actions. But I could never say I was angry with him.
It's interesting that I was actually curious what your answer was going to be to this question, considering that, as we were all talking about it, I thought your answer was going to be interesting because um do you know of your martial arts background, so you have had an exposure and a practice put in place for you to learn how to respond to a situation versus react to it. You've had training in discipline, self-discipline, in critical thinking, and all these things came from the structure that you had, so that's why I thought it was going to be kind of a wonderful contrast to the rest of our answers. I mean, I know I went all over the place a little bit just kind of explaining the background, because I mean, as you see, each of us have a different level of anger and how we express it, especially where it comes from. um
The funny thing is, or not the funny thing, but the interesting thing is, that is another big reason why I don't have that, you know. And also to piggyback off of what Erica said is God, right? It's like I believe. I'm a believer. I believe. And so it's like God's got it. That's just something I believe in. God's got it. So why would I need to be angry? Why do I need to feel threatened? Why do I need to feel this? God's got it. But I still need to have action. And God is love. So therefore, when I lead with love, I lead with God. And that's how I feel. And that's how I do things. And to also go off of that with my martial arts is that's been my release. So I don't hold on to a lot of things that will make me angry. I just release it. And then I learn how to pivot physically, mentally, emotionally. I learn how to pivot. I learn how to make things happen. I learn how to figure out a new way to deal with things. But don't get me wrong, I know quite a few hotheads that are martial artists, high level fighters that be like quick to fight somebody else. I'm like, man, you get paid big dollars to fight in the ring. But he's like, man, I don't like the way this dude's talking to me. I hate this. I'm just gonna end this, lay hands on him. I'm like, calm down, priest. You don't need to be laying hands on nobody unless you're in the ring. That's how you go to jail.
Actually, I think that interesting little contrast. You don't fight. Um, competitively.
No.
No. So you've had a different relationship with martial arts, whereas these individuals may have had this quote bloodlust before, you know, or it could come from the position that they've been put into to be in these fights, so their whole mentality and their mindset is focused on fighting. The person across from me, I'm not supposed to like them, whether they play up their beef or not. Like, it's still that mindset of I'm going to have to throw hands with this person across from me, and like in order to get into that space might have to be in a certain mentality, or I might have to have like a certain feeling behind it, and that reoccurring thing trains the individual to feel that hot-headedness. Because I wouldn't say that in martial arts you wouldn't get that with everybody, just because I feel the outlet is also what creates the person, and the way they handle the situation is dependent upon their outlet, is
Yeah.
dependent upon like where they take their skills, where they take their training and focus.
Well, some of those guys are just buttholes too, where they
True.
just like to fight, and they're just like, "Hey, man, I don't like the way you look. Headbutt, boom, let's do it."
Right.
But I mean, I totally get where you're coming from too.
But were they trained at a young age though? Like,
Um,
like
no,
you had that sort of training and whatnot at a young age, because
some.
and I mean, it's why I've been really like pushing for us to be back in a quote normal world where we can have classes and stuff, because I want you to train the tiny ones, like, just because I feel like especially Ian could do with some discipline, some focus, some uh somewhere an outlet for some of the stuff that maybe he needs to burn through.
Thank you for bringing that up. I do want to talk about something that just happened this past Saturday, if you guys don't mind. I was training my nephew because of the shelter in place order, or the, you know, I this was our last session together, and he's going to be traveling to Texas to go spend a few months with his dad. And me and his dad, we have an agreement that like he wants me to work with him. I want to work with him because he's like, since I'm not in the area any longer, I need him to be around a strong black positive male role model, and I want that to be you. I'm like, psh, say less, I'm there. Our last training session, I could tell by the way he moved, by the way he was striking, he had a lot going on mentally. Long story short, I stopped him in the last 20 minutes of our session. I was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "We're regressing here. What's going on?" Last session, phenomenal. This session, not so much. What's going on? And the reason why I asked that is because I'm like, every session we have, I give him something to think about and to talk about. Our very first session, patience. Our very first session was being present, because he's easily distracted and focused on everything else. I was like, so we're just going to talk about being present. And then every session after that was, we gave him a new phrase. I gave him something to talk about, something to think about. So we talked about presence, being present, being patient, about listening and trusting, opening up, being honest, talking about how you really feel, just these little jewels every session. This session, because he has a hard time with opening up about how he feels and articulating these things, this last session, no lie, he broke. And I mean, when I say he broke, I mean he is heavily sobbing. And in that moment, I was like, the dad, the uncle in me wants to embrace him and talk to him and let him know he's going to be okay. But his mom's there, and I let her do that, because at that moment, I'm still his coach. And I need to stay in my coach's role, because I know how to jump from coach to uncle, from uncle to coach. I know how to do that. But I have to allow that space for him to express. And his mom knows how to pull things out of him. And he had unloaded so much emotion about the traveling, about what's going on in the world, about the holidays, about everything. And you forget that these kids are paying attention, and they harbor so much of this emotion all the time, where they don't even know if they're angry until it's too late, until it's bubbled over and is exploding. And I said all that because I had to get him to that point. I needed him to feel those emotions and express those emotions and talk about those emotions. I needed him to know it's okay to feel the way you feel. Feel your emotions, feel those things. And then I had to teach him, now listen to me. Everything, and his mom said this too, everything you're feeling right now, I want to feel on these mitts. I want you to put all of that emotion into these mitts because this is the proper way to let that out. You're not hitting a person, you're not exploding on people. You're processing this emotion through your workout. And I want you to do this. You're holding back so much because you're unsure of everything. You don't know what's going on in the world. You don't know what's going on with your family. You don't know what's going on with this, with that. I never realized at 10 years old, you could harbor so much and can articulate until somebody's able to pull it out of you. I'm going to tell you right now, that last round of striking was his best round in the last 3 months of us training together. And his mom said one thing before she said, "You're not going to see Uncle Gooch for a few months. This is our last session for a while. Make this the best session of your life, and let this be the last memory he has of you. Make it a good one." And I said, "Don't worry." I turned the timer off. I turned everything off. I said, "Look, just give me everything you got right now." It was amazing because he finally figured out how to express those emotions, his anger, his frustration, his confusion, his everything. He was able to express it in a positive way and a constructive way. And that's what my martial arts was for me. And I was finally able to really unlock that for somebody else at an early age. And I'm telling you right now, like, he was sobbing again when I was like, "This is not goodbye. This is, I'm going to see you later." And his mom was like, "He's really bad with goodbyes." I said, "That's fine. You don't have to be good with goodbyes. But this isn't a goodbye. You're going to see me again. It's going to be some time, but you're going to see me again. We're going to be good." And he started sobbing again. He's like, "I'm going to miss you, Uncle Gooch." I'm like, "I'm going to miss you too. But just know you're going to be okay." And this moment right now, what you're feeling, this way of processing this emotion, I want you to do that when you get over there with your dad. His dad's got a whole boxing setup at his house. He's got weights a whole nine. This is what he needs. And I'm like, so what you're going to do with me here, you're going to do with your dad. I want you to do this with your dad. I need you to open up to him and understand that we can talk. Because this anger episode means a lot to me because that is what's going on. We have so much emotion being processed through our people, through our young individuals, through everybody, and nobody knows how to properly express these things and have an outlet for it.
I want to say I appreciate you for sharing that story because I mean, like I said, yeah, that's why I felt like it's important because people do need an outlet. Um, we'll get to how to cope with anger in a little bit. Erica, Richard, I want to ask you two a question, and then Omega. Also, I'm curious to hear your answer. Even though I feel like I might know what it might be. What was your relationship like with anger growing up?
I can't say that I had an angry childhood, generally speaking. Um, I think the one thing that did bother me or have me in a state of anger is my lack of relationship with my dad and not really understanding what had occurred and not being able to really process that. And then getting to an age where I wanted to process that and not being received, that made me angry. And I think that bit of anger I carried with me until, I don't know, maybe 30. Um, because it's hard to not have those types of traumatic things um, manifest in your life. And when you can't make it make sense, there is nothing else to feel but angry because you're seeking resolution and there is no resolution to be had. And so, that frustration over the years becomes this mounting kind of, I'm just pissed off because it just doesn't make any sense. So I would have to say, in terms of anger, that's probably something that I had to work through. But my mom is not an angry person. I don't think, generally speaking, our family is angry. We're a very loving, albeit we're dysfunctional, but we are a loving family. So we didn't have a whole lot of anger. I will say that I think generally speaking, though, the Black males in my family have good reason to be angry. And I think outside of Omega, I'm going to call you Omega now because you're not, you're not Anthony. I don't think a lot of them had constructive outlets. And I think that that is very apparent in how many felons we have in the family, how many drug addicts we have in the family, how many alcoholics we have in the family. So I think I have been witness to many angry people, not lashing out in an angry way, but becoming self-destructive in the sense of not being able to kind of process that anger and being able to identify that they were self-medicating or treating some unresolved anger similar to mine, whereas mine became raw emotion and tears and frustration and unhealthy relationships with men. Their relationship became became whatever else it was. So I would think from a child's perspective, those are my two takeaways when I think of anger manifesting itself in my childhood.
Now, I'm going to ask you another question on that. I want to expound on this a little bit. Now, would you say that they did that because of the lack of resources available to them, whether it is through the community or even through the support of their family to be more positive? It's one thing to say you shouldn't do that, but they never really gave them another alternative, so why, or another outlet so they didn't have to.
I think yes and no. So I think that there were outlets available to them. But I also think that many of us in our family were raised by single parents. So really how much time that they have to invest in making sure that we were involved in whatever it is the outlet had been, was identified. I think that mostly doing the alternative, the drugs, the crime, the whatever, was easier and more welcoming because it comes with that community, even if it's dysfunctional, but you had your boys and people from the street that embraced you. And they're all a bunch of angry little trolls running around for different reasons, and commiserating over their negative emotions and not talking about them. We're not going to talk about that we're angry. We're not going to talk about whatever's lacking in our life. So I feel like it's not necessarily the lack of resources, but it's about taking the easy road. So it was easier to do these things. It's more acceptable to do these things. This is what everyone else was doing versus what you were doing, martial arts and other things. Because God, how many times did our cousins make fun of you or, make a joke about you doing something constructive? That was a valid outlet, right? They're judging you because that wasn't the popular thing to do. So I honestly don't think it's lack of resources. I think it's uncool.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, first of all, thank you for validating that for me. Because I really thought maybe I was, and this is just me being 100%, I thought maybe I was just being too sensitive, or I was just looking at things like I'm playing a victim, I guess, in a sense, because I was the outside, but I mean, you really just validated for me, like, okay, I was seeing this, I was hearing this, but I felt okay.
No, you did. You have always been really, I think that is part of who you are. You've always been very self-assured and very confident in who you are as an individual. And so I've never seen you react or blink or internalize the things, at least from my outside perspective, the things that you were subjected to as we were growing up, because those things did happen. But you also have to think about the people who are making those comments. Without dropping any names, if we add up all the years that they've spent in prison, who's getting the last laugh?
No, 100%, 100%, and it's very interesting you bring that up because I open my doors to them to still, you know, give them that outlet still and let them know like there's still room for you here.
Right. Because you're not an angry person.
Exactly. I choose not to be. I can't do it, But you're right, and that's why I said the lack of support too, is because I think as parents, we need to give them that support, that understanding, that confidence that you can do something else.
We need
You
to
know,
push them to do those things. How many times did my kids be like, I don't really feel like doing that, or I don't really do this. And we're going to go. You're going to try it. We're going to do it for a whole season. If at the end of it, you don't like it, then we don't finish it. But that's how Leilani started stunting. That's how she got into swim. That's how she got into Girl Scouts. You just kind of, and then it becomes not necessarily the activity, but them seeking out constructive things as opposed to the alternative.
yes, yes. And
Which is key. It's key, so I'll use my daughter as an example. As she continues to struggle, your referral to the boxing coach has been integral in her continuing to improve, because that there is that outlet, all of the anger and the emotions and all of the things that she's feeling. She's never done boxing before, but it's not the activity, it's the outlet.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, the question was, what was your relationship to anger when you were younger, right?
Yeah, throughout your childhood.
Um, a few words came to mind, and I don't want to ramble. I'm gonna say stifled, raw, and avoidant. And so, if I can put these words together, stifled because there was really no way to healthily express it. Um, and you know, like, things are gonna make you angry as a kid. That's just life. Like, and it's okay to be angry. It's an emotion, you know. Um, but we had no way to express it, so it come out rawly. You know what I'm saying? And so, but also seeing, my dad, when he would get angry. Okay, so that's what anger is. That's how I would recognize that emotion. He's angry, so that's what it is. But of course, your parents are the first people you learn from. So picking up habits unhealthily, when you're angry, you go do this. But also not really knowing healthy ways to talk through that anger, let it process, breathe, or just healthily communicate that anger. Just I'm angry because dot dot dot, and that makes me angry. Blah 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 blah. Avoidant because I think it was Erica. She said something today. I was like, I used to say that. Being angry takes up so much energy that you can use that energy doing something else more productive. And I was like, no, I don't want to be angry. Like, choose to be happy. You know what? Things are gonna piss you off. Like, not everything makes you happy, and like that's okay, right? And so it was avoidant because I was just like, no, I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be angry. And so, in so many words, I felt like that was just all connected because it just pushed it down. Even if I was angry, I man, whatever. And I feel like that formed an unhealthy habit because whenever I felt myself rising up, I would instantly try to push it down and go positive. Instantly try to push it down to, not feel that way and not really letting myself feel those emotions. Raw because I just didn't know how to process it. Things are going to make you mad, like you got siblings. Still can't stand each other now, but I love them. You know what I'm saying? So it was raw because we didn't know how to do any of that. Like, we didn't know how to properly process it. So if we did get angry, it came out in a very brash way, and came out in a brash way. It made you do something, get a whooping for it, which made you more angry. You know what I'm saying? So it was really like no really healthy way to handle it. And so now, to be honest with you, I'm gonna just, when the time does come for me to have kids, I don't want to immediately go to the belt. I want to, hey, let's talk about it. What's up? Tell me how you feeling. How did that make you feel? Hey, you need a minute? Okay. I'll give you 5, 10, 15 minutes. You be cool. I need you to come down though. I just need you to chill, but we're going to talk through this. I feel like it was a lot of unhealthy habits, and even now, like, trying to unlearn those habits, but recognizing if I'm angry justifiably, that can cost me my life now. You know what I'm saying? And so that's something that I'm still kind of dealing with now. But that was my relationship. So
Because I mean, I resonated with that a lot. I mean, you heard a little of what I was saying. Just there was no healthy way to express anger within my family growing up. That, like, yeah, like 100%. You know, it's it's hard sometimes, especially when you have that relationship with it, to kind of to not worry about how you're going to interact with your children in the future. You know,
I hated getting beat. I hated it. I hated it. I don't say I hate anything. I hated that. I hated the fact that I would get beat, be told to shut up. I hated the fact that I would get yelled at and nobody would listen to what I had to say. I hated the fact that other people's word was stronger than my own. And you don't know the full story because you only heard it from one side and didn't care to understand mine. That hurt me to my core. That hurt me to my core, to a point to where I shut down and quit talking. So I'm not going to be angry. I'm just going to process it and deal with it my own way after a while. I guess it's safe to say I did deal with anger, but I didn't realize I was angry, if that makes sense.
Can I just interrupt you for 2 seconds?
No, please.
I think it's amazing that you are not angry, um, because you grew up in an angry home. And this is not a dig or a disrespectful comment towards your mom. Um, but you hated getting beat and you hated being told shut up because that was the freaking norm. That was a regular occurrence. That wasn't, let me discipline my child. It's, I'm just pissed off. And Anthony, sweet, kind, meek, mild little boy who never did anything wrong, really, is going to be the brunt of my anger and my frustration. So, I think that it is a freaking miracle that you are not an angry person, because the average person would be pissed off at, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, the borderline abuse that you lived through um, as a child. And so when you talk about, not having, uh, a role model to express your feelings, the fact that you are a functioning, loving, patient, compassionate person and steadfast to break the cycle is freaking amazing. It is amazing because I am angry for you. I am angry for you. And I can tell you that, you forget things as you get older from your childhood, but I have very vivid memories of us growing up together, and the shit was not good. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was very unexpected. I love you and I appreciate you for that. Thank you. And she's very right, you know, very right. My eldest brother is living testament to that anger. And I'm still working on him to this day. Notice how I said I'm still working on him. Like I've been working for years to mend that time and to bring it back to make sure that they make peace before the inevitable happens. But there's a lot to process through there. But, growing up, learning that I was being blamed indirectly for the issues of what happened with my father, you know, and this is important, and I want you guys to hear this, not just those on the panel, but the listeners at home. It's important that you explain to your kids what's going on. They just see the tears, they see the fear, they see the tears, they feel the fears, and they get the brunt of the heat, and they don't know why, and they take it on as if it's their fault. I vividly can tell you right now, I vividly remember standing in a room in my dad's bedroom while he shaved, facing the mirror, back to me, shaving, and him having to explain to me, your mother is mad at me. and you are a constant reminder of me to her. That was that spoke volumes. That was so deep, but I was a teenager to where I didn't really understand it. In college, I learned about menopause by choice because I learned that, and I heard my mom say this my whole life. I'm in menopause, and this is my menopause. Like, and a lot of some people are like, that's just an excuse. Oh no, when it is felt like it's 50 below zero outside and we're driving in the car, obviously the heaters, and we're all sitting there, I'm sitting there shivering, and then all of a sudden she's like, whoo, Lord, and rolls the windows down. Now we all frozen in the car except her. She's melted. I'm like, yo, what is going on? Or the moment where she could be smiling in my face one moment, the next moment she's bawling, crying, and I don't know why. And I go in there to comfort her, and then she's angry at me, and then she's okay again. And she's like, "What do you want to eat, baby? What's wrong?" That that roller coaster of emotion threw me off to where I didn't know what was going on. I thought my mom hated me. I thought she didn't like me. I thought she was mad at me. I was like, why doesn't my mom like me? What did I do? Like, I try to do anything and everything. I mean, yeah, I make my mistakes. I do childish things. I do these things. But why is she mad at me? Come to figure out, it was way beyond me. But she never explained that to me. And just her saying, I'm going through menopause. I'm a 10-year-old kid. What in the world is menopause? I can't even spell that. you know? But it took me to be in college to be like, all right, in sociology, I learned what menopause was just so I could better understand her.
You feel that?
So that's why I'm saying, like, that was that was the anger of my life as a kid. It wasn't me being angry, it was me being the brunt of somebody else's anger.
You know, hearing you say that, it brought back a lot for me because hearing you say, your dad telling you that you were the constant reminder of him to your mom. I kind of felt like that way with my family. My Like I said, my relationship with anger throughout my childhood, everybody was angry, but nobody was angrier than my mom. Um, I mean, rightfully so, a lot of stuff happened to her, as a child that made her run away and live her own life outside of the home. And the things that ensued after that, just fed to that anger. But like I felt the straw that broke the camel's back was my mom's relationship with my dad. And so I really, because it wasn't just that way with my mom, but it was a ripple effect. It just kind of destroyed the rest of my family and how they interacted with each other. And coming to the future real quick, I see a lot of myself in Ian, and my kids growing up, like from when I was growing up, all the energy, the excitement, I always had this feeling like I was too much for people because I had a lot of energy, and that's what gave people that, like, and that's what, in my mind, that's what was triggering their anger towards me. Like, you all know me, like I'm very expressive, I'm very full, like I'm raw with my delivery. I try to be, at least, and that, as a kid, comes off as just like a lot, and so with that, growing up, I felt, coupled with, my me having, similar facial expressions or things like that to my dad. And my mom would be upset with me for no reason, apart from her having DID and having multiple personalities. But, like, mhm, that's a whole other episode, in and of itself. But she harbored a lot of anger. So with that too, my siblings, I felt like growing up, I always felt like they hated me. I mean, like, they showed me love or like or whatever. They showed me like, but I never felt like love because everyone was always so quick to anger. And I always felt like it was because, I reminded them of my dad to an extent, you know. And on top of that, I 100% get the mom going through menopause. Like my mom had me when she was 42. So menopause came earlier in my life, you know.
35.
Oh yeah.
My mom
Wow.
had me at 35, and I swung her into early menopause at 35. So I came into this world in a menopausal household.
Yeah. My mom having the idea wasn't much different. It was just there was this extra added stressor that, I guess excited that part of her, or those parts of her, that just made it, or agitated those parts of her that made it harder. Um so yeah, like the relationship with anger, like to feel like people don't like you for one reason or another. Like, as people of color, it's already hard enough being outside your family. And then like, parts of my family, I felt like didn't like me on my mom's side because, they weren't black. Um, and like, cause I knew they were racist, you know, and to feel like not accepted within my own little closer knit part of my family, I just felt like I was too much for everybody. So that relationship with anger, I felt like I feel like that dragon that I mentioned in my very early 20s, of feeling it for the first time. I feel like maybe that was just like that outlet. That first time I'm able to actually access it, it's this pent up like canister canister that just released in a way that I had never felt before because I'd never gotten a chance to address it. My mom took me through all sorts of different things about like how to manage, life in general, and try to take for principles of the universe and teach me those. But when it came to anger, she never talked with me about those things. So I had to come to that space on my own as an adult. But yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, too. That was very touching, man. One thing, you and I may address something. I don't know if anybody ever told y'all that. But I'm sorry, I told y'all this, but I'm sorry I had to go through that. But two, hopefully what I have to say will make sense. I'm sure y'all know it. Y'all already know it because y'all are smart men. But like, one thing I had to learn is that, we all have similar stories. Dad coming home angry. So of course, as kids, we're taking that on. Like we did something. Not knowing somebody at work pissed him off. You know what I'm saying? Or something work related pissed him off, or maybe something on the commute home pissed him off. We had nothing to do with it. But him not knowing how to properly process anger, him not knowing how to properly decompress. Of course, somebody had to get this heat, somebody had to get this smoke, right? And so I think as kids, we, in so many words, got in the way of gunfire that was never intended for us, right? And so basically, we're learning as adults now, with kids, nieces and nephews, if I have anger, I got to handle it the right way because I want this person to know, or I don't want them to have this memory of me going off on them. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, I said all this to say, I'm sorry that y'all got that unnecessary gunfire that was for y'all. And I feel like as adults now, we learn, hey, it was never for us. They just experienced something, didn't know how to handle it. So whoever just happened to be in this spot, oh, I'm unloading on you. And I mean, I can't speak on your parents, but I can tell you right now, my parents didn't really do the best job of apologizing, right? And so that's something that I want to work on, when it comes time for me, kids. I apologize. That's on me, yada, woo, right? But anyways, so I would say just learning a lot of those things. And if I'm coming off as dismissive of both of y'all claims, I apologize. It's not the case. I just, as my brothers, I don't want y'all to carry that hurt around. And because we're dealing with it enough already. I just want y'all to know, I'm pretty sure that anger that y'all experienced was never intended for y'all. I'm not gonna speak on all of it, but but I'm just saying it might have been a time or 10 that, hey, you caught some heat that you did not deserve. So gentlemen, I love y'all, and that's all I got.
I love you too, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I do want to expound on something. I've been thinking about this off and on, and I really want you to think about this. Do you realize we're only me, Erica, because I don't know your guys' history. We are only 3 generations away from slavery.
It wasn't that far. It wasn't, and if you do the math, some of them 2 generations, but it wasn't that far.
And I said because my grandfather, my mother's dad, was born 1919. So I think about that. My grandfather, mine, was born 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago.
And Big Daddy, um, which was so your grandmother's dad was had to swim across the Mississippi River to get away from the KKK. So that wasn't that long ago. We have stories of people we grew up around and can remember.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And I say that to say this because Richard, you said something that was very valid. Is that it wasn't our fault. Our parents were could have been set off or triggered by a plethora of things before they got home to us. But I say that to say this. They remember what it was like when their parents would come home from a hard day of work and racism. And they would get beat and they would get all of that. So why would you continue that? It's why would you not
Not
consider
intentionally.
being the change that you wish to see? Yeah,
Right.
we say not intentionally, but look at us.
Well,
I mean,
um,
but my situation's very different. My household's very different. And I have to say that because my daughter is not my blood. So therefore, I, as a man, as a stepfather, know I only have so much reign over my child. There's only so much that I can do. I've never raised my hand. I've yelled at my daughter one time in 14 years. That is because I know my place, I know my role, I know how far I can be. But even with my own child, my own blood child, if God ever gives me that, I can't continue what my mother did to me. I can't continue what my father did to my siblings. I can't continue what my grandparents did to my parents. I cannot do that
right.
because I seen what it did to them. I seen what it's doing to me. I can't let that continue. So my question is, why weren't they able to have that same mindset? You're ready to, lift every voice and pray. You're ready to um, say Black Power. You're ready to, march for freedom for everybody, but you won't even free your own household from the tyranny of you taking out your anger from what's going on to take it down to your own kids. Come on, man.
But I mean, like the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. The reason why we have the opportunity to open our eyes and be like, no, no more, is because I mean, we were chosen within our family to stop this cycle. By our ancestors, so to speak. Like, we have a very different opportunity. We have very different opportunities than they had, because we have that moment to actually continue with our growth. Who's to say they didn't try to grow out of it? But then, because of circumstances and the way the world continued to be and the way the outside world continued to treat them, and ended up internalizing that. And then or or they were too far abused, because there's a breaking point for people. There's a breaking point for it when it comes to dealing with um unresolved anger and that being directed towards you, like it's hard. It's hard to manage, especially if you're if you've gone through that and you've passed that point of no return, because then you're just in that space, like I said at the beginning of this little uh interruption, but like hurt people, they're going to recreate those things subconsciously. I had a moment where, like trying to work on new ways of focus with Ian, and it just it's just, I don't know, there's something that I'm not doing correctly, or it's just going to take more time, what have you. But I had a moment in the middle of everything while he's trying to do school, and I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you, but I was right there in his face. Like I got down to his level, but I remember just being in his face, like, I need you to focus for like 2 seconds. And I felt myself having a flashback in that moment of my mom being in my face, but she was angry. And for me, I had to, with everything inside of me, not create that moment again for him. Like, even though I'm down there, I'm in his face, I'm like, you have to, like, but I'm trying to like get to his level. I'm trying to bring his attention to me. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get things working in that direction so that I'm like, you got to focus. I need you to breathe. I need you to look at me. I need you to be present. Now you have to keep that with school, and you got to try and continue. And instead of the experience I would have had, which would have been yelling at me in my face and strong arming me over to where I gotta go, slugging me before she leaves, or maybe get the belt. Just depends on wherever she was at. You didn't know the extreme of it, or the jar of peanut butter at your head, because I got that one. Yeah, oh yeah, I dodged it. That shit was.
And I'll add and say, like, I'll just be totally transparent that yelling at my kids was something that I had to work on, because it's not as easy as one would think, because we are human beings and because of all the things that are going on in this world. It is a very hard thing in the moment to check yourself and have self-awareness and hold yourself accountable when dealing with your children, because your children push your buttons in ways that, honey child, you never thought your buttons could be pushed.
But they're you.
They are me. And I think also we want our kids to be what we imagine them to be. We want them to live up to this, I am pouring to you, and I'm pouring into you as a parent, expecting to get this outcome. And when the outcome isn't manifesting, I'm like, no, you need to do this. And so the other part of it is, when you fall short as a parent, as an individual, and you do end up yelling or having this unpleasant experience, I can tell you that much of the yelling that I've done with my kids has been because I was in an abusive relationship. Okay, so absolutely had nothing to do with them. But I tell you what, now that I have done the work for myself, I talk to my kids and I've apologized for previous indiscretions and previous shortcomings. And to your point, I've shared with them. And now we have a dialogue, and I'm like, look, I asked you to do something twice, or we had this discussion twice, and I'm getting upset. So the outcome is on you. If you want to continue to have this dialogue and you want me to continue to bring the best version of myself, you got to meet me halfway. Because as a human person, I only got so much patience, and I only got so much, so it's really difficult to bring your best self to the table every day, all the time, 24/7, in the midst of paying bills, in the midst of going to school, in the midst of maintaining a job, in the midst of all the things that are going on. And so I think I would like to say the difference between me and maybe this generation versus the generations before the self-awareness and desire to be better is greater in this environment than ever before. The time has changed. It is not kids. It's not when we grow up, you were to be seen and not heard. You better be on the freaking fly on the wall. That's not the time we live in. And so as things shift, we are empowered to be better versions of ourselves in ways that our parents were not empowered. So I think collectively, when you add those things together, the shortcomings of being human, the trials and tribulations of being of life, the challenges of just being a parent, you know, one, I need a little grace, because I can tell you, you know, there was some yelling going on in my house because you come home, you work all day, and it's just the slightest thing. And you're like, I can't take another freaking thing. And then that kid does that one freaking thing. And it's like, look, and you know, the conversation I had with myself that made me stop yelling at my kids. If I can give my patience to everyone else in this world who is not my family, who is not me, who does not live with me, I can give my patience to my kids. It's that simple. Everybody else who is least deserving is getting all of me. And when I come home, I've got nothing left to give the people who I'm supposed to be building up and handing off to this world. So I got to stop that. So you think about all these things. I'm yelling at my kids. He's yelling at me. He's telling me I ain't shit. He's verbally abusing me, physically abusing me, all of these things. And then I'm turning around and Xavier done dumped his dinner on the kitchen floor. Heck yeah, I'm pissed. What the hell are you doing? You know, so you just have all these things that just create the perfect storm for you to be angry. It's hard.
You said something that like it flashed me back, because I mentioned it quite a few episodes ago, but we were talking about kids and how, like, me growing up, my mom, you know, swear she had the devil inside of her, because she looked like I was convinced my mama was a demon, because she would look at you with these eyes where you were like, oh, I'm about to be exercised and I'm not even a demon. Like, oh shit. But like, I developed that look so that I didn't have to raise my voice or put my hands, because I didn't like that. I'm like, I'd much rather just scare you with me looking at you. I mean, I feel like that's less, that's less harmful. But I mean, there's also these different layers to what is, what can affect children and what can affect people in general as they move forward through life.
The reason why I kind of said what I was saying earlier too is because I vividly remember this one moment when my brother was angry and was disciplining my nephew, and my mother said something that literally made him stop, and I stopped, and we looked at each other like, who in the hell is this? And I quote, "You are being too mean to that boy. You don't need to whoop him. You need to hug him, love him, explain to him, tell him what he did. You need to explain that to that boy and hug him." We both looked at each other and said, who is this? Because there's not a moment I remember you hugging us and explaining to us what we did. It was pap, pap, pap. Shut up, boy, before I give you something to cry about. Now go to your room. That was all. The explanation was the pap, pap, pap. I was supposed to read between the paps to know what I did wrong. And then I can't answer. Crying is the answer. So I got to shut up before she really gives me something to cry about. You hit me. I think that's reason enough to cry. Oh,
Right.
you don't want to listen to me, but you did this to me. But I have to go to my room. So you see how all those little things, that's why I'm saying it's like they had the mindset to not treat their grandchildren like that. And that's what I want you to think about. The grandparents usually have that mindset not to treat the grandchildren like that, but they don't think about their children like that. And that's why I said what I said. It's like my great grandfather is 3 generations removed from slavery. I mean, it was from slavery. I'm 3 generations removed from slavery. So that means he had his traumatic experience that was being brought and he was raised up under. And then my grandfather got that. Then my grandfather also joined the military. So you add that onto that, as well as dealing with race relations on top of that. And then he brings that to his household and brings that to his children and so on and so forth. So it just keeps coming. It's like, eventually, when is it going to stop? It's like, if you don't want to feel like you're still in slavery, if you still don't want to feel like somebody's beating you and you have no idea why don't you just stop? Like, that's my thought process. I get the fact of it's hard because Erica, you brought this up to me right now, listening to you. Lisa Hall was a single mother who's trying to raise a boy the best that she can, dealing with an older son who's in and out, doing what he's doing. Not like he's a bad guy, but his responsibilities, dealing with being single or dealing with whatever's going on, still working on multiple jobs. It's like, I get the whole thing, but why do you take it out on your kids? I should be the reason why you're happy. I should be the reason why you want to continue to do this. We all should be that reason. That's why before I got married, I asked my wife, what is your outlet? Her answer at that time was, my daughter. I said, no, because what if she makes you mad? What is your outlet? What are you going to do for you? What is your you time? That is important, because if you don't have that, you're going to take that out on your household.
I remember observing a friend and her kid one day. So they were having breakfast, right? They was at the house, they was having breakfast. And basically, she made him a plate, sat it in front of him. He's maybe at the time 2 or 3 years old. I'll just say 3. And so he's like kind of like flipping out. She's like, hey, what's wrong? You have to use your words. First observation, inquiring, but also giving him the space to use his words. And he was just like, more syrup. Problem solved, more syrup. That's it. That's never happened to me. You know what I'm saying? But also like that small disgruntled, he could have internalized that, threw off his whole day, and he hates mom now. You know what I'm saying? And of course, kids forget whatever, but like something as small as that as her is inquiring, you know what I'm saying? I never saw it before. So even now I tell people, hey, it's okay, use your words. It's small, it can be seen as elementary, but I do think sometimes that little push of encouragement will, get people activated, right? And I just thought that was just a great interaction between a parent and a kid, right? Second one, I was in Sunday school this last Sunday, and I'm in there with a bunch of teachers, and they were basically saying, I get it, your parents did the best that they can do, but a lot of times, their ways, it's been proven, stunt the growth and mental capability of a child. For example, hey, how come this happened? I said what I said, don't worry about why it happened. Instead of, critically thinking. And if this is embedded, and weaved in our culture, because let's be honest about it, we've all heard the phrase, you got McDonald's money. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, if these are just, a common phrase that we've heard before, and of course, a wild example, but y'all get where I'm going. And like, think about the effect that has on our kids, on our generation that's coming up behind us. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm older. I recognize, hey, my parents wasn't really angry at me. Yeah, probably here and there. But like, the world is tough. You know what I'm saying? So letting them make it and offering up some grace as well.
Y'all know me. I'm all for grace. But I'm also about accountability too. And sometimes I'm still gonna hold them accountable for that. Because it's like, you really gotta talk to me and explain this to me. Mm-hmm. And I've had this talk. Even to the point to where I had to tell somebody, I was like, look, I lost respect for you and I don't know who you are anymore, because this is not who it was. Not realizing this is exactly who they were. I was just too young to realize it.
So we sent out a question on our Instagram story earlier today before we recorded. And the question was, how do you express anger and what makes you angry? The question that we asked off top on this episode.
First response was, I can't control this personality flaw. what comes out isn't well thought out. So you're pretty much telling us that you shoot from the hip because you're very emotional. And I know it could be a cultural thing. And I say this only because I know who this person is. If you know you can't really get down to the essence of how you're feeling, don't speak. Take a moment. Just don't let it out. I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes it's better to stop and think than to just speak right away, just from the hip. You know, because they say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words will never hurt me. That's a lie. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words, they
That
cut
deeper.
deeper.
Well, no, I mean, I can understand that. It's
Totally, totally.
sometimes having that outlet, like having that other place where you specifically show it, feel it, live it, you know? Like how we were talking about, you were mentioning with your nephew, the moment he got to address it, it came out and you had like a really good session because that outlet, that moment, that space, what became dedicated for him to feel that. And that might be something that allows for the future of like I'm feeling upset and I'm feeling angry, but I'm not going to address it right now. I'm going to take this back to the gym, or I'm going to take this back to the punching bag, and we're going to let it out there. So the next response we got was, I can get petty and retaliate, but I try to be calm and think before I react. Now, I think it's a really interesting answer because it involves or it expresses what we said before, responding versus reacting. And that's all the calming yourself down and thinking before you respond is, really thinking before you react is. It's just that moment, taking a few deep breaths, taking a second to just be like, all right, is this really something that I should be upset about? Like, if I told it in a different way, would it be really be upsetting to me? But also, I feel like a passive aggressive anger is something that's can lead to a different toxic place, because that can get to a point where you end up not ever really expressing how you feel towards people. But it can, like, it can become a slippery slope to just start, like dropping little things. Or I know it's very high school, but people, that's how they start rumors, because they're being petty. They're being they're taking that time to retaliate.
Okay, so the next person says, I think about the whys, remove the emotion, formulate my words, then communicate. That is a very, very mature way of handling it. But that also came from a lot of experience and a lot of pain and trials and errors. And I mean, that's beautifully stated. That's a beautifully stated way to handle it. Because again, like we mentioned before, our words cut, you know, and I'm gonna be 100% honest. I'm sorry if this sounds very biased, but women cut so much deeper when they respond. When their words are so sharp. I can't explain why, but I have to, and I say that because this is a young lady who responded this way. And the fact that she's able to do that will also take a man or take another person, it will catch them by surprise because of how sharp her answer is going to be, because she takes that moment. And if she's quick with it, oh man, you're in trouble, because it's going to catch you way off guard.
Can you elaborate why you think that?
Why I think that?
Yeah, I mean, being that you're a man, so
No, I'll definitely tell you. Women are more expressive in their language. Women use more expressive language when they speak, especially when it comes in regards to feelings and emotions. Whereas men, most men are not equipped to have expressive language like that. So it's like women use so many more words in a day than a man does, which is true. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. That's just the facts, right? Whereas men are learning how nowadays to be more expressive, are finally learning how to be honest about their feelings. Because for so long, we were told to shut up, don't cry, just take it on the chin and keep on moving. Don't talk about how you feel. So therefore we are always ill equipped to be able to do that when we're in a situation like that. You know, so that's just my take. That's how I feel about it.
I think that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like it also comes from a certain level of hurt and pain that exists for people within their experiences. Depends on how deep they cut. I mean, if we're talking about the female experience in the world, it, it it's a constant struggle. Correct me if I'm wrong, Erica. Is it not a constant struggle, especially being a Black woman? You're having this uphill battle of fighting with mansplaining, fighting with toxic masculinity, fighting with, the inability for a person to understand what no means. There's all these levels of things, like worrying about the threat to your safety, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on. And so, like, there's this level of stress and pressure and anxiety that like builds, and anger that builds from that can give more sharpness to when it's finally being expressed. I mean, women have the capacity to hold on to a copious amount of pain, and we can see that through the birthing process. You guys go through so much and can handle so much. So just a little expansion on that. The next response we got was very aggressively.
I am literally responding to this with a question.
Oh, okay.
Why aggressively? And is it always aggressive or case by case?
So their response was very aggressively. Almost everything, makes them angry, and that they need to work on that. So this is, it's actually interesting, because I guess that goes back to what I presume will be our question of the night. But what is your outlet? Especially the time that, for teenagers, and young adults, you're going through the rush of hormones. Top that on with this new pandemic level of stress and anxiety and pressure that's put upon you all. Add that to the external pressures at home, in life that you've dealt with, the kinds of things, the kind of the level of abuse people might have, in this time. You're going to be very reactionary. You're going to be very, it's going to feel like it's hard to manage, it's hard to maintain. When back to what I said earlier about when early 20s, when I felt that dragon first arrive, I didn't know how to, maintain that either. I didn't know how to manage it. I just had this new feeling. I didn't think anger was going to feel cold. I always heard people say, oh, I'm getting heated, I'm getting mad, oh, I'm seeing red. No, I didn't see red. I got cold and I started shivering. My face was the only thing that was warm, you know? And so, like, but I didn't know how to handle that. So that level of intensity is only turned up, to its highest dial when you're going through the height of your teenage years and young adult years. So yeah, I mean, it takes time, but that'll come with also these coping mechanisms that we have, that we'll address.
Yeah, outlets is a big thing, man. Outlets is a very, very big thing for everybody. And also surrounding yourself with people that make you comfortable enough to express yourself.
Mm.
Because a lot of times we are surrounded by people that don't allow us to properly express ourselves. And they're always constantly feeling threatened by our expressive nature.
Mm.
Whether it's joyous, whether it's negative, whatever it is. Go for it, Rich.
Sorry about that, Chief. I didn't mean to cut you off. Also, along with that, being okay and just knowing anger is an emotion and it's okay to have that. Now, mind you, one thing I do respect about Zen Omega, and I think we've all seen or been around each other during experiencing different emotions, them knowing, hey, I see you and I recognize you feel this way, but like, one, you're not about to go to jail, but two, you're not going to internalize this. You know what I'm saying? And so, in so many ways, it never was said, but looking back on it, it's been several examples. I was just like, basically proving what you said, Omega, but also recognizing like anger, it's a-okay. Now, Omega, I believe him when he's like, yeah, I don't know anger. Totally believe it, because one thing Omega will say, you know what, even when I'm not good, I'm good, right? And like, still blows my mind to this day. But anyways, biggest thing I can say, it's okay to be angry. And growing up, nobody ever told me that. So I'm thinking anger is something that you aren't supposed to experience. Like, oh no, it's a bad thing. No, anger is an emotion. And you know what? It's human, it's natural, and it's okay.
Can I piggyback on that?
I'm going to say no, but absolutely, you can definitely piggyback on that.
Well, I just want to add, I totally agree with what you're saying, that anger is a natural and human emotion. I think where we as people fall short is there's not enough self-examination as to why. Anger is often a secondary emotion that underlying, there's something more there. And if you're really interested in being in control of your emotions and control of your anger, you need to understand, why are you upset? And so I think it's important to leverage a method where you do a root cause analysis on yourself. So using your example, Rich, from earlier, where you said, disrespect makes me angry. Why? And then whatever your answer is to that, why? And then you just keep asking why until you get to the root of that, to be able to articulate, to say, this is why this angers me. This is how I'm going to prevent this from angering me. Although anger is a human thing, the outcome is almost always negative, even if it's just the expenditure of your energy. So it is so important to be able to acknowledge, yes, I'm angry. This is why I'm angry. And now I'm going to walk it back.
Also to understand that there's healthy anger. That's something that I don't think is talked about, is that there's healthy anger. Okay, if somebody walks up and takes your pudding cup, and you haul off and hit them, that's unhealthy anger.
Wait, hold on, man.
Right?
Are they in college is my question. Because I got a bone to pick with somebody. They stole my little brother's lunch, man, and he didn't do nothing about that. I'm like,
what flavor pudding cup too? Because
it's chocolate pudding.
Well, I'm not gonna fight you over chocolate, but I might fight.
Somebody can catch a hot one.
Okay.
You better put my pudding cup down.
You better put my pudding cup down. But seriously though, like if somebody picked up your pudding cup and stole it from you, and you got up and hauled off and hit him, that's a unhealthy reaction. That's an overboard reaction to the situation. But if somebody walks up and just hits you and just starts hitting you in the head, like, you could justifiably and healthily be angry about that, because that is not okay. No one should ever do that to you. If you are and you aren't knocked out,
Yeah.
or if you're not holding your pudding cup, there is healthy anger. It's not supposed to be something that is shunned or put away.
That why method, beautiful.
Mm,
It was beautiful, very powerful. But then I'm also going to tell you this. Do you realize that takes you back to dealing with little kids again? And why? Toddlers ask that question all the time. Why? 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 Because they want to get to the root of it so they can understand it. But my question is this: why are we so impatient? Why do we lack the patience to explain why? Is it because we lack the expressive language? Or is it because we're just like our parents with the because I said so method, and I don't have the time to really explain why, even though it should take a moment or two.
Or they don't know and they're just saying because I said so because they don't want to say I don't know. And that's also an unhealthy method to teach your children is that you can't say I don't know.
That's true.
Well, you should be able to articulate the reason behind why you're feeling anything to a certain extent, because how else are you to um how how else are you supposed to be self-aware and in tune with oneself? They say you're in control of your happiness. If I can articulate what makes me happy, how am I going to be happy? It's the same with being angry, or really anything else for that matter. So the benefit is of finding out the why is not so that you're not angry. It's so that I understand why I'm angry. And then I can identify my path forward. Is this a valid anger? Am I just tripping? Is this an unhealthy anger? Is this a healthy anger? You have no place to go but up and identifying the why.
I love that. That's so powerful. Um
Bars.
more. Uh I think it would be important for us to and really good for us to um kind of go through some of the coping mechanisms or the anger management techniques, because especially dealing with anger, like we said, it's hard, especially if you're not like you've never felt it before in your life and you're feeling it for the first time, or you just have had it up to here with the hundreds of whys you've received from tiny people. um 10 steps to anger management. First would be to think before you speak. Now, in the heat of the moment, it's easy to say something that you'll regret. So it's best to take a few moments to collect your thoughts before saying anything, and also to allow others involved in the situation to do the same. Because, when two people are going at it, it's hard. Um, Two, once you're calm, express your anger. As soon as you're thinking clearly, express your frustration in assertive but non-confrontational way. State your concerns and needs clearly and directly without hurting others or trying to control them or the situation. Because you have a lot of times where people we that term gaslighting. People will try to gaslight them and control the narrative and confuse people and do all these things. The next one, number 3, is I feel statements. So stick with I feel statements. So basically, it's best to avoid criticizing or placing blame, which might only increase tension. So using I feel statements to describe a problem, it's best to be respectful and specific. For example, saying, I'm upset you left the table without offering to help with the dishes. Instead of you never do any of the housework. Kind of an interaction. 4, get some exercise. Physical activity can help reduce stress that can cause you to become angry. If you feel anger escalating, go for a brisk walk or run, or spend some time doing some other enjoyable physical activity. That's why I started dancing again. It's because it's helped with the outlet of the extra emotions. And I noticed that like I feel happier the moments that I'm really getting into my dancing, whether it's me dancing seriously or I'm dancing silly. Uh, 5, take a time out. Timeouts aren't just for kids. You give yourself a short break during the times of the day that tend to be stressful. A few moments of quiet time might help you feel better prepared to handle what's ahead without getting irritated or angry. Like a break or a timeout can go a long way, because I know, especially in moments of where I'm feeling superheated, if I'm like, nope, I can't, I will. I'll be back. I'll be back, because I know that I'm like, whatever's gonna come out next is not going to be conducive to the betterment of each other, you know. So I'm gonna go take a break before I say something I regret. Um, Number 4, identify possible solutions. Instead of focusing on what made you mad, work on resolving the issue at hand. Does your child's messy room drive you crazy? close the door. Is your partner late for dinner every night? Schedule meals later in the evening, or agree to eat on your own a few times a week. Remind yourself that anger won't fix anything and might only make things worse. Number 6, don't hold a grudge. Forgiveness is a powerful tool. If you allow anger and other negative feelings to crowd out positive feelings, you might find yourself swallowed up by your own bitterness or sense of injustice. But if you can forgive someone who angered you, you might both learn from the situation and strengthen your relationship. I know I skipped over 5. 5, use humor to release tension. Lightening up can help diffuse the tension. I know that there was times when I was growing up where my mom and we would have arguments. I mean, I guess when I grew some balls and decided to like challenge her on shit, we had these moments of where we were yelling at each other at like we got all the way up here. We're yelling. And I had a moment where I was just like, like, what are we yelling about? This is stupid. And I laughed. And my mom ended up laughing, and like it diffused the entire situation. I guess it's also probably why I default to comedy for a lot of things, is because it's a tension reliever. It encourages relaxation. Which comes to the next one. Practice relaxation skills. When your temper flares, put relaxation skills to work. Practicing deep breathing exercises, imagining a relaxing scene, meditation is amazing. Just a few moments of presence can change everything. We did it in an episode before, but I'm gonna say this now. Like, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose, count to 5 until you hit that last breath. And then on the release your breath, counting backwards from 5 until you don't let everything out until you get to 1. And that'll allow you to be in tune with your breathing, and it'll be an even breath, and you'll get into this rhythm, and it can help relax you, as well as making yourself present in every part of your body. Those are sorts of things that kind of like help slide you into that meditative space, that point of relaxation. Whatever it takes to get you there. Yoga, there's a lot of different coping skills that involve that. And I believe last but not least is know when to seek help. I feel like that is the most important one. Know when to seek help, because learning to control your anger is a challenge for anyone at times. So seeking help for your anger issues, if your anger seems out of control, causes you to do things you regret, or hurts those around you, will go a long way, because that shows your desire for growth, your desire for change, your desire to disrupt the pattern that existed, to change the narrative of hurt people. Even though it's true, it doesn't mean it needs to be. Like there were things in my life that caused me to reach out to anger management. It was part of getting my son. You have to do all these courses and take all these parenting classes and anger management, what have you. And I remember just going through the anger management class. I'm like, these are things that seem like common sense, but aren't, because we're not taught these things in the heat of the moment. Like, who's going to teach them to us? The person that's being angry. Like, they don't even know it. They don't even know to do those things. But then something happens, they get older, they learn about it, and then they come back to you, and then they're like, no, don't do that to your kid. That's not an okay thing. And you're just like, did the demon just say don't hurt them? Like, when you used to breathe fire down our throats.
I'm over here like, now you have strategies on how to be nice and how to communicate clearly. Oh wow, thanks. That was a little bit of like 20 years too late, but hey.
That's called being a grandparent. Okay. When you become a grandparent, all of a sudden you have patience and freaking spades. My mom comes over here and visits. You should see the crap she does for my kids. And I'm like, what? Never cease to amaze me. Okay. I'm like, so we're frying chicken at 10 o'clock because Leilani says she wanted fried chicken, but she already ate dinner. What happens to the kitchen is closed when the light goes on over the stove and we ain't cooking no more?
Oh, I remember that.
Right? Okay. But that
I
rule
remember
doesn't exist because apparently, grandkids get whatever the heck they want.
that was beautiful, man. This was a very purging episode.
So I posted this thing on Facebook the other day. It's so funny. It's about anger. I'm going to read it to you. When someone tries to trigger you by insulting you or by doing or saying something that irritates you, take a deep breath and switch off your ego. Remember that if you are easily offended, you are easily manipulated.
Bars.
I really liked that. So,
And on that
Bars.
note,
Thank you to our Patreon, to everybody that is in our Patreon, a part of our Patreon. Thank you to all those that are subscribed to all of our channels and are helping support our message and helping us to spread love, peace, joy, and happiness around the world. We appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we just want to say thank you so much for all that you've done for us and continue to supporting our channel. And for us making it to 1,000 downloads, big time. That's a big deal. And to hundreds of thousands of more downloads. I'm speaking into an existence right now. Hopefully millions.
put it out
Putting
there.
it
Put it
out
out there. A question to our Discord as well. You've heard, like what makes you angry, but now our question for you is, what is your outlet for that anger? What is your healthy outlet for that anger? I don't mean the bottom of a bottle. I mean, like, what is your outlet?
Great question.
And if you want to continue this conversation outside of here, you can join us on Instagram or Twitter at Have a Drink Cast, and make sure to use the hashtag HADcast. And if you want to find out further ways you can cope with and manage your anger, get a cat. They help as well.
Or a dog.
Or a dog. They are very friendly and loving and adorable. All right, it's closing time.
Thank you, Bernard. Bernard dog.
Hadcast, I implore you to raise your glasses. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, I want to thank y'all for another successful episode of the Have a Drink podcast, where we'll invite y'all back to sit, think, and have a drink. That's been us. Peace.
Peace.